Hey, so this is the final day of the Enneagram Roadmap initial release early bird special. And one of the bonuses we've just announced is something that we call the Enneagram Roadmap Travel Guide. Now, this is a journal that I am currently designing that will be a really kind of an important part of the Enneagram Roadmap experience. And the reason why is I'm using my own personal story as a way to craft questions and journal prompts that help you understand, like, not just the concept of Enneagram subtypes and not just the concept of how powerful the system is, but to be able to contextualize it to your personal experience. So let me give you an example. I am an Enneagram 3 sexual subtype, as I've mentioned in other videos. And one of the really like the difficulties of figuring out which subtype I was is that I had a personal experience in my life that went almost contrary to my natural wiring. So as I was talking to Beatrice while she was here creating the program, she mentioned that sexual threes, and I even mentioned this in the last video, that we have a tendency to sort of project our success through somebody else, like through our spouse or through intimate partners. And we want to see their success. We kind of want to experience success, through them. And we have a 1 degree of separation from wanting to get inside our own personal value. And so we don't really like going to that place and questioning our own personal value. And so we end up sort of becoming supporters. And if you're a woman in particular, but this also happens for men that are sexual threes, almost like ornaments. Like, we want to be decorative. She even mentioned that sexual threes can sometimes go, I'll just be beautiful, like arm candy for my successful spouse, which I thought was super interesting because I've never felt that way. In fact, if you've listened to our podcast, you know that I've dealt with body dysmorphic disorder, and I've dealt with a lot of things that sort of have given me reasons to go to therapy. I'll just say that. And I mentioned to her that I suspect that one of the reasons is because my older brother, who is almost 9 years older than me, would make comments about how we come from an ugly family. Now, he was old enough to appear to be an adult when we were all kids. Now I look back and he was 15 when he made these comments. And 15 is, I'm almost 40 now. So that really seems like a kid to me. But at the time, I was a little kid, right? He was 15, so I would have been 6 or 7. And so I got imprinted into my mind, I come from an ugly family. And so this concept, this intrinsic wiring that said my value is in showing up as an ornament, was in direct contradiction with this imprinted message that I come from an ugly family, thus the inference being that I was ugly. And of course I imprinted this at 6 or 7 years old, which is way too early to be making those kinds of judgments, but it just sort of got stuck inside my head. So then I dealt with a lifetime of trying to make a reconciliation between these two very contradictory thoughts. And I went to therapy for years for body dysmorphic disorder, and I did all sorts of work, and this was the big thing in my life. And I finally was able to understand why it dominated so much of my psychological real estate, because the entire time, of course, I just felt shallow. I was like, why do I care so much about what I look like? This is so stupid. I'm attractive enough to get through life. And even if I quote unquote wasn't according to society, what does it matter? This doesn't matter. And it felt beneath me. And so it was a part of my ego that I had a lot of trouble having a direct relationship with. It was very much, even though I understood it on a conscious level, I realized I wasn't really truly dealing with it directly because it was so painful for me. And so it stayed in this very subterranean place. If I could just, cerebrally and logically talk myself out of it, somehow that would do it. This is stupid. I'm stupid for feeling this way. And it wasn't until I had that conversation with Beatrice about how my wiring was in direct contradiction with a life message I had been given. And this, of course, is no fault to my brother. He was just being a teenager. He was just saying cavalier things like teenagers do. And he had no idea that I was like, my brain was all open for an imprint at that moment. It was going to capture it and have this like massive life narrative and story, you know, be the result. He didn't know that. And so it was just an accident. It was just like a perfect storm. And when she mentioned that, she's like, wow, isn't it so fascinating how our subtypes and the stories of our life through our subtypes are colored by these experiences that are basically like happenstance and accidents. And I'm designing this journal that we're calling the Enneagram Roadmap Travel Guide that is designed to have questions that pull those experiences from you. What are the moments in your life that were just accidental that may have given you a story or a narrative that is difficult to reconcile with your subtype, with your programming, with your mind's natural wiring? And is this something that has put you in sort of like this hamster wheel of stuckness, right? Like you just can't get past it because your brain is trying to reconcile two very contradictory things and it can't come to a conclusion until you have awareness around it, heightened awareness. Like you can't just logic your way through or can't just feel your way through. You've got to actually see the impact that these narratives and stories have had on your wiring. Like you can't control any of this at the time it happens. You can't control that perfect storm, but you can have greater awareness and watch yourself and observe how how the stories are unfolding and then take practical steps to get off the hamster wheel. So that's one of the bonuses that we're adding to the Enneagram roadmap. And today's last day, like I mentioned, of the early bird, introductory piece to this. It's like right now, it's I think 30% less, or the discounted 30% off the tuition, and get some really amazing bonuses. So if this is something that will be powerful for you, and I have a feeling that this travel guide is going to be it's going to be a prompt to a lot of ahas. I recommend that you follow the link that is, I believe, above this video on Facebook Live. I think it's above. I recommend going and checking it out and making the decision to invest in the Enneagram Roadmap. I think it's a good idea. All right, so I just wanted to share that, and hopefully that was helpful, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.